My name is Bill Repard. On behalf of my colleagues from Paydirt and Gold Mining Journal, a very warm welcome to Africa Down Under 2020. Before we start, I wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we're meeting on, the Noongar people. I wish to acknowledge and respect their continuing culture and the contribution they make to the life of this city and this region. Well, welcome again to what promises to be a rather different looking Africa Down Under to previous years. For some of us, and most of us, the past few months have had its dose of challenges, big and small, and many will have learnt quite a bit about time spent in self-isolation, self-reflection, and business closed down. Something I think we can agree about is that Australia's been blessed with good fortune, good health, and relatively little discomfort at a time when the world's been turned upside down. And that's due in many regards, we believe, to the strong leadership at both state and federal levels. And of course, advised with recommendations of advice from the best medical advice on possible. Sorry. So indeed, we are very fortunate to be able to hold today's meeting, and at a time when other parts of the country still would not be able to hold a meeting such as this. And our thoughts are obviously with other countries around the world and people who would be here today who can't be because of various lockdowns. But instead of that, a warm welcome to those who can't be here but would be here in other parts of the world. And we've amended the timing of the event to try and maximise this live event so that people across the world can participate. As I speak, it's just about to turn 6 a.m. in Johannesburg. It's 4 a.m. in Accra and in London, where I think it's a chilly 3 degrees. It's 11 p.m. last night in New York and Toronto, and for those who've registered and have tuned in already, a very warm welcome. The ADU journey started some 17 years ago, and from very humble origins, it has grown into the largest business interaction between Australia and the African continent. And when we started, one of our key objectives was to create a forum to hear about the success stories from Australian mining companies and exploration companies working closely with African governments across more than 40 countries. This included stories by Australian companies, development stories in some of the most exciting and resource-rich countries on Earth. It also included stories about the employment and training of local workforces, the work with communities to help improve the health and welfare of the communities in which these companies were operating. And it is worth underscoring the fact that while ESG is a much talked about term today, it's been a core part of Australian mining companies' culture in Africa since ADU started 17 years ago. We've got in the next 3 days, we have a jam-packed program in place, which includes presentations by African ministers, company presentations, panel sessions, including the popular Meet the Homs session, which will be played in various parts over the next 3 days. We also have the successful AMEG Awards this evening, and I would strongly recommend that you attend these awards, which are generously sponsored by Parenti. Many of you would have heard that the 2021 mining Indaba has had to be cancelled due to the current position with COVID. And we'll be joined from London tomorrow or the next day by Cale O'Sullivan, who's Mining Indaba's Director of Investor Relations. And Cale will outline the exciting plans that they've got for a virtual Indaba 21, which I think it'll be useful to hear about. A conference like ADU, through good year, bad year, wouldn't happen without the support of our sponsors and exhibitors, and we thank you sincerely for that support. Likewise, for the advice and strong support from DFAT, Austrade, and the participation by the African ambassadors serving in Australia and their Australian counterparts serving in Africa. And I should acknowledge High Commissioner Dorcas Maketo, who's the High Commissioner for Botswana, who has pulled a miracle and has joined us from Canberra for the next few days. Please welcome the High Commissioner. Just before I should say we've enjoyed with ADU the strong support of the West Australian Government. But before I introduce you to the Honourable Bill Johnson, who will open today's conference, I'd just like to go through a little bit of housekeeping. This covers, as you would have noticed when you arrived, the venue, the Pan Pacific Perth, has adopted the highest levels of COVID compliance. So in terms of hand sanitisers, distancing, we have plenty of space and we're fully compliant. I should point out the fire exits. There's one behind us here, and there's another further down the corridor, if needed. The bathrooms are further down the corridor on the way to the lifts. And if I can ask people to perhaps turn off their mobile phones or put them on silence. We will, of course, try and keep to time and as much as we can to ensure that the program goes. But there may be some changes to the program over the next 3 days. But we will obviously do our best to keep everybody posted as to those changes.